I did the knee thing again. My knee was not where I wanted it to be. And then I adjusted it. Like as soon as it started, I was like, now's the time. Now's the time to fix the old knee and to get it over the desk like a champ. That's how I roll. I have not seen it yet on the YouTube. And you know me, I am the doubting Thomas of the internet. I have seen it. It is good. I have seen it. It is good. How do you like that? What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good evening to everyone where it's evening where you're at. How's the future? Australia, New Zealand, you're in the future. How's it going? Fix climate change, would you? We're counting on you. No pressure. Well, except a lot of pressure. We need you. And to all my fellow West Coasters, good morning. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. This is the last Get Your News On With Ron, official Get Your News On With Ron stream of 2020. This is the last one. I take a break at the end of the year, come back in the second week of January. The first Get Your News On With Ron show of 2021 will be January 11th. And that's just the first official stream. We might have some stuff in the interim. There might be some on-site stuff. But as far as official streams goes. But anyway, shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale now because of the pandemic. They supply the tea to Get Your News On With Ron. They're a wonderful independent tea shop run by a lefty and friend of the show, Jeffrey. Check it out, ZT.com. Our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. Trendy Nay educates the public on cannabis with his show, and he makes topical pain oil that I use on my neck all the time, and he always includes guitar picks in his care packages, which just makes me smile, just makes me happy. So check them out for some pain oil and some cannabis enlightenment. Triageoil.com. All right, my guest today. I'm super excited to have this guy. We've done a lot of collaborating in the past. He even organized a show for me before at his studio, which was such a super fun time. And this is Steve from Slow News Day and Action for Assange. Steve, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Ron. It's really good to see you and good to be
Likewise.
back on the show.
Likewise, man. Good to see you. And yeah, man, you know, I kept your intro brief there because I wanted to say, you know, what y'all have been doing, and for anyone not in the know, Steve is part of a team that organizes visuals for Julian Assange. I've participated in some of them myself. They organize actions for Assange. They have, I mean, y'all have gone to DC. Y'all have gone to London. I mean, y'all are really doing a lot to keep this story in the spotlight, to not let this go under the radar, and to keep the alarm sounding for justice for Julian Assange. And, it's insanely important what you guys are doing. And, I got to say, y'all kind of gave me a kick in the butt to, at the end of last year, I decided that I wanted to kind of be a little more mission heavy and Get Your News On With Ron. And an issue I care a lot about is municipal broadband. And, seeing what y'all were doing as far as really just picking a cause, picking a lane, and really just hammering that lane, it made me want to do that a little bit more. And I was nervous about it, but, I just kind of went for it. And I'm glad I did. So thanks for that.
Hell yeah. It really, I mean, at least for us, this is the issue that affects all other issues. And that includes, to an extent, municipal broadband, because part of this battle for free speech, part of this battle to save Julian Assange from 175 years in the Supermax for being a publisher, it is about securing a free, and all other issues correlate to this issue, because without the free flow of information, activism ceases in general. your activism hinges on whether or not you're able to communicate your message to
Right.
a broad audience.
Right.
And if we have a technocratic regime running the country like it looks like we will under, you know, the Kamala Harris administration, our ability to communicate with one another is hindered significantly. You add that onto the fact that, you know, we may never see the end of a lockdown, and our ability to communicate person to person has been hindered greatly. So the precedent that would be set were Julian Assange to be extradited to the US is that any journalist or publisher anywhere in the world is subject to imprisonment under the Espionage Act, not just for publishing classified material, Ron, but they said this in court, for receiving classified material. And that's not just publishers, that's me and you. Sharing classified material, the Department of Justice argued in Julian Assange's hearing, is an offense that the U.S. seeks to punish under the Espionage Act globally. The U.S. is claiming international jurisdiction over what can and cannot be not just printed, shared. That is insane to me. Absolutely insane to me. And the fact that this hearing is largely taken place in a vacuum is one of the most frightening aspects of it. I mean, we've been doing the vigils when we're in DC on the 3rd and the 4th. We'll be there a day early, January 2nd. That will be our 18-month anniversary of the Free Assange vigils. 18 months of consecutive every single week Assange vigils. And one of the things that we've learned is that this affects so many different people in so many different places of the world on so many different levels. The chilling effect that this has had with other journalists, the fact that the Freedom of the Press Foundation came out with a report last week that said the number of attacks in the US on journalists has increased 1,200% in a year. The charges against Craig Murray, the attacks on Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett for walking outside of their door and asking people in Syria what is going on the ground in Syria. All of these things are interrelated, and we need an independent media, Ron Placone. We need an independent media that understands that the national security state exists. We need an independent media that works together to preserve our collective ability to broadcast. This is a post-partisan issue. Stopping the extradition of Julian Assange. Repealing or drastically reforming the Espionage Act. This is something that we would like to work with content creators on going forward, even if we get our way on January 4th.
Right. Oh, yeah, because it's got to go. I mean, it's got to go. I mean, that whole thing, it started in it goes back to World War I pretty much. And it just
1917.
Really, yeah, it just has no basis today. And doesn't it? And we're going to talk more about Assange later. So I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole yet, because there's a couple other stories of the day I want to share with you first.
Yeah.
But
so I'm kind of in that mode, man.
No. It's all good. It's all good. I mean, we can bounce around. It's okay. But before we get off the topic, just one thing I'll add to what you just said. Isn't it remarkable to you to see how in a courtroom, in a court of law, they are so unapologetically just cherry picking what they can and can't push against this guy, where it's like, when it's convenient for us to point out the fact that he's not an American citizen, so we don't have to give a hoot about his First Amendment protections, we'll point that out. But when it's inconvenient for us, all of a sudden we treat him like, when it comes to trying to punish him, we'll just sort of not mention that fact that he's not even an American citizen. And when it comes to the corporate media parroting nonsense like he's a traitor, we're not going to bother pointing out that whole he's not even an American citizen thing. But when it comes to rights he would have, we're going to be really quick to point out he's not an American citizen. Talk about having your propaganda cake and eating it too. Holy shit, man.
Well, why do you think Mike Pompeo is such a rotund gentleman? I mean, so can I tell you something real quick before we get to the other stuff? There's a fantastic team of activists in London that have been going to Piccadilly Circus every Saturday at 4 in the afternoon for months and months and months and months and months. And a couple months back, Whitney Webb, who's probably my most frequent guest now, was back on the show. She was talking about Kissinger. She referred to him as a gigantic blob of satanic jello. And that sort of got adapted by the Team Assange UK. They have included Mike Pompeo in the gigantic blob of satanic jello, and it's now on a protest sign where there is a cartoon rendition of Mike Pompeo as a blob of jello with devil horns.
And now somebody's got to make that album. I mean, how can you not have an album called Satanic? Wait, what is it again?
Gigantic blob of satanic jello.
That's got to be an album somewhere. Someone's got to do that. Someone's got to do that. I mean, I would, but I don't feel like I deserve, I mean, like someone.
Maybe we can get Rovix on it.
Rovix could have an album called Gigantic Blob of Satanic Jello. I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. So a couple other more stories of the day, and then we're going to get back to the Assange thing because we're going to talk about what to expect on January 4th. But in the meantime, a few other stories happening today. And we actually got some calls to action to start. I am not in New York City. I am not close to it. But if I was, here's where I'd be going later today. Essential workers, here we stand, heart to heart and hand to hand. March on Bezos, 215 Fifth Avenue, New York City. This is happening today at 6 p.m. Eastern time. They're going to march on Jeff Bezos, and people are protesting because this guy is behaving like a freaking emperor. We talk about it on this show, and it's good to see people standing up. I mean, I'm a stan, STAN, for a general strike. I don't know about you. Where are you at on general strike? Are you general strike?
From day one of having Slow News Day, we would frequently close the show with heads on pikes and general strikes, or nothing fucking changes. So, yeah.
Man, dude, when are you gonna record something? All these freaking those need to be lyrics. Gigantic Jello Blob needs to be an album. You got to get on this. I mean, who all? I know you're musically inclined. You play. Well, who else in the Action for Assange team plays?
Daniel DeCedar, who runs the North Carolina Action for Assange chapter, plays. My frequent co-host on the Vigils, Kendra Christian, grew up playing violin and is taking guitar lessons now. Alex Hills, who organizes Candles for Assange in New Zealand, that we work with constantly. It was on the vigil last night, as a matter of fact. She is an outstanding violin player. Sherry Clayton, who runs one of the Canada groups, is a hell of a drummer. It's a matter of getting everybody in the room at the same time.
Well, I mean, that might be difficult, but what you could do is just with the help of a Dropbox account and a lot of patience, y'all could just record remotely and then put it together.
It's true.
The digital age does give us that capability.
I gotta figure out how heads on pikes and general strikes or nothing changes picks out on banjo. That's what I gotta.
I think it's meant for banjo, man. that is like a bluegrass protest song. Yeah. I'm excited for this. I just gave you a 2021 endeavor. This album and these lyrics have got to happen, and everyone will be like, "We heard it on Get Your News On with Ron first." I'll promote it.
What we need to do is start a 52-week club right now, and a 52-week club is something that we created at the Strawberry Music Festival about 15 years ago, where you get a word or a phrase or a topic, and you have a week to write a song about it, and then you come back the next week and you play your song in the round. you know, even if it's like on a Zoom meeting, and then you get another word or topic and come back a week later.
Oh man, did you just freeze on me? We're losing you a little bit. Are you with us, Steve?
I hope so.
There you are. Okay. Yeah, you went. Speaking of municipal broadband, we lost Steve for a second, but we got him back. Every now and again, we lose you for like a brief moment, but then you kick back in. So, you know, we'll roll with it.
Weird.
Yeah, you know, that good old internet of ours. But yeah, so everyone in New York, again, we'll show this again. Essential workers, here we stand. New York City, baby. Today, 6 p.m. Eastern. I was about to say 3 p.m. Pacific just because I'm so used to giving multiple time zones, but I really don't need to do that in this case. Like, in case you're on the West Coast and can't be there, it'll be a different time where you're at. But 6 p.m. Eastern for all my New York City people. You know, if you're gonna do it. Be safe, be careful, be well. And yeah, bring your Amazon boxes and your masks. That's what the flyer says. All right, another thing happening today, and this is this hits home for me, literally. This literally hits home for me because this is where I live, and this is gross. So everybody, you've been warned. This is pretty freaking gross. I just saw this a couple minutes before logging in. And I was maybe or maybe not cursing about it while I was having a cup of coffee. But this is breaking. Today, the city posted notice of their plans to displace over 50 residents in San Pedro, that's where I live, on Christmas Eve. We just took Mayor of LA up on his commitment to LA and the health of all Angelenos and asked him to prioritize public health over politics. Hashtag services, not sweeps, which, by the way, the hashtag services not sweeps is trending on Twitter right now. So here's the picture. Now it's hard to see where exactly this is going to take place. It's kind of hard to see the map just from this photo. But at 6 a.m. on December 24th, which is Christmas Eve, they're going to do a quote street cleaning in San Pedro, my neighborhood, and it's going to displace a bunch of houseless people on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve. Now, while the city is being completely insufficient on services, keep in mind, in the nation, there are over 1 million less people providing social services than there were before the pandemic. So during a pandemic here in the United States, we have less services available to people, not more. But they got the money and they got the time to do stuff like this. And this is gross. And I've tweeted at my mayor and I just straight up said, and I know I don't have the right to speak on behalf of all of San Pedro, but I fucking did anyway. And I just said, keep your goons out of my fucking neighborhood and stay out of my neighborhood. You are not welcome here. You are not welcome in San Pedro, Garcetti. You're not welcome.
Hell yeah. I mean, look, Eric Garcetti is he's emblematic of just how corrupt to the core California politics are. But aside from that, I mean, he is a deeply unlikable man. Big shout out to my co-host on Slow News Day, Glory Jones, because she's in LA. She's out in the streets all the time standing up for this stuff. She is one of the most like on the ground activists in multiple arenas that I've had the privilege of knowing for quite a long time. And the fact that Garcetti's office is just running with, sure, we'll evict people on Christmas Eve. I mean, I honestly, I'm not advocating violence, Ron Placone, but if someone were to build an effigy of Eric Garcetti dressed as the Grinch, and then placed it in a homemade guillotine, and then put those on every street corner from the mayor's office to the neighborhoods that may be affected by this in San Pedro. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a good idea. I do.
And we're strictly symbol
Grinches as far as
Garcetti Grinches. Yeah. Well, and shout out to People's City Council LA, who made Garcetti the Grinch, and they are organizing, writing to the mayor. I'm going to do it later today. writing to the mayor, urging them not to do this on Christmas Eve. I would go as far as to say urging them not to do it, period. Stop displacing houseless people during a freaking pandemic. If you're going to displace them, here's an idea. Displace them into a fucking house. Displace them there. You're really concerned about the homeless? Why don't you follow no vacancy, which the People's City Council of LA has been calling for since the pandemic started? They've been calling for no vacancy. It's been ignored. They've done the bare minimum just for a photo op. So why don't you do that instead of doing these street sweeping and displacing houseless people on Christmas Eve? I mean, they could follow no vacancy.
Yeah,
for the same amount of money. It costs a lot of money to do this bullshit, to do this inhumane bullshit. For those same resources, you could house people.
You're paying cops double time because it's Christmas Eve. How many of them does it take? And what happens when rightfully people say, no, I'm not leaving. I'm not. What happens then? What does that escalation look like? How much does that cost? How much does it cost in the aftermath of that? Absolutely, it's more practical to simply house people. Yeah. Absolutely. It's not like there's not the space.
There's plenty. Yes, exactly. There's plenty of space. I mean, they've run the numbers many times. It's just so frustrating to me to see stuff like this. And I mean, couldn't you just, for one day, it's freaking Christmas. Can't you be an asshole 364 days a year? And for one day, maybe just like, hey, everybody there, we're gonna give you a hotel room for the night. I mean, even that's the bare minimum, but it's just so insane that even for just one fucking day, you can't be a human being for one fucking day.
If, like the Grinch, Eric Garcetti's heart grew 3 sizes one day, it would still probably be the size of like a speck of mushroom dust.
And not the fun time mushrooms.
No.
Talking about just the regular
Although
mushrooms.
I am a fan.
I am too, buddy. That's why I was like, don't give him that much credit.
We're not talking maybe that's what he needs, though, Ron Placone. Maybe Eric Garcetti needs like 12 hours with a shaman and 5.5 dried grams. And maybe he would come to the conclusion that doesn't make any sense to turn people out into the street on goddamn Christmas Eve.
Maybe he needs a bad trip to wake his ass up. Maybe he needs a fucking bad trip where it's just like, oh man, I'm the villain. It's like, yeah, you are the fucking villain. I want to look in the mirror and see horns growing. And he's like, it's this. And it's like, no, that's really you. You just saw what's on the inside, motherfucker. So stop being an asshole. How about that?
We'll get some greasy Grateful Dead Wrecking Crew guy to just like puddle 30 hits in his hand.
So shout out to the People's City Council, and please do follow them on Twitter, just People's City Council, and write to the mayor. And I do have one more call to action because I know it's a holiday. If you live in San Pedro or nearby, I mean, it doesn't have to be San Pedro, but if it is San Pedro, and you want, please email me. Go to my website, ronplacone.com. Please email me if you are in San Pedro. I wanted to try to do a thing regardless where, I'm going to be making a lot of food tomorrow for Christmas Eve. And I wanted to try to do something where I distribute it to some people in need. It's just my wife and I, so I'm just cooking for the two of us. So we're going to have plenty of food, and we'd like to give it to some people in need. I'm going to try to coordinate that. Fortunately, one of the great things that San Pedro has here is there's a Facebook group of all things. Facebook is shitty in so many ways, but sometimes it can certainly be used for some good things. And this is one of those, for instances. There's a Facebook group to help housing and food insecure people, where you can just, if you have something to offer, you can just post it. Similarly, if somebody needs something, they can just post it. So, I've used it in the past to get people water and to get people some other things. And I'm going to use it later today to try to get some food to people. on Christmas Eve. So if you're in San Pedro and there's anything you can do to maybe help, please feel free to reach out to me directly, because this is our fucking neighborhood. And this is our neighborhood. And it's not right that they're doing this in our neighborhood. It's not right that they're doing this in any neighborhood. But, you know, when they're doing it in yours, you know, you got to do something to try to help people. Because, you know, this pandemic has shown us we are all we fucking have. We are all we have. And I know I'm cursing a lot this show, and I'm sorry if that's making anyone uneasy. But
I'm told I bring that out in people.
Maybe you do, which God bless you if that's the case. But regardless, I think part of it, too, is I just saw this morning. There were grumblings that they were going to do this on Christmas Eve, and now it's been confirmed. And I'm mad. I'm fucking mad because, you know, San Pedro is a great neighborhood. And you know, this isn't right. And I'm freaking furious. You know, like I'm just really furious about this. And you know, and I'm gonna try to do something to help. And that's all we can do at this point. We're all we got. We're all we freaking got.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I think that not to jump too far ahead, but I think that January 4th in DC, we're going to see a lot of people who may not necessarily agree on everything, who are all in Washington, D.C. that day and that week because they've come to the realization that their government has failed them and they need to do something together to get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, and you know, and this is one of like another reason why I really wanted to have you on today, because it's like the last show of the year. I really wanted it to have a glimmer of hope as far as what
you invited me on.
Yes. Yes, I did. Laugh all you want, man, but
no, that's fantastic.
I never said hope can have sarcasm. Like those two things are not mutually exclusive, and anyone who says otherwise just isn't looking beneath the surface. But, you know, again, you have a chosen lane that's been effective, and we're going to talk more about that later in the show to end it. And to me, that is hopeful. That is a hell of a lot more hopeful than just jerking off about electoralism. That's not hopeful to me. But, you know, people that value mutual aid, that value reaching over to their neighbor and cooperating, because that's what we decided as a society many, many years ago when we climbed out of the trees and decided we're better off cooperating than being every person for themselves. You know, kind of focusing on those principles. To me, that is infinitely more hopeful than, you know, 90% of the stuff you see on YouTube, quite frankly.
Okay, well, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I do. And there are from day one, we've tried to, at least on Slow News Day and certainly on the vigils since they've been going on, we've tried to get it across to people that that until we've secured a free press, until we've done what we can do to make our communities as sustainable as possible without or with as little reliance on governmental, until we've done those things, we don't get to have, oh, did I crap out again?
Just for like a second. It's like you'll go out for a second, but then it'll like pick up right where you left off. So
okay. Yeah. But until we stop relying on centralized structures, we don't get to have conversations about where we can go with policy. We don't get to have conversations about where we can go with political parties or political ideology, because we haven't secured the bedrock shit yet. So it's going to take all of us to do that. Let's do that, and then we can get down in the mire. But I've been putting it like this, Ron, at least in terms of electoral politics or the U.S. political system. If you had a machine And that machine was designed to work for 1 out of every 150,000 times you tried it. Your solution to that machine wouldn't be, I should slap a couple shiny new parts on it every 2 to 4 years, and that'll make it better. All you're doing is prolonging the life of a machine that is designed never to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no. I see what you're saying. I still, electoralism, I think, has its place in the overall toolkit of change, and I think that place is more shiny locally than anywhere else. I think, and you can, if you go through so many of these shows, I say to so many people who want to run for office, I'm like, have you thought about city council? Have you thought about mayor? Did you realize like that's really important too? And a lot of people don't want to hear that because it's not as sexy. And okay, but go tell Gail McLaughlin, who lives kind of near you, that it's not sexy when she was able to form an alliance and get Chevron the fuck out of town.
Yeah.
Go tell her that, localism doesn't have its place or can't be incredibly effective. So it can. So I mean, structurally what you're saying, yeah, I'm totally with you. I do still see electoralism as an inevitable part of the toolkit of change, but it takes a complete, reworking of the system. I mean, our electoral system is a lot like the police. It cannot be reformed. That ship has sailed. You need something way deeper than reform. Reform is way too little, way too late. I think the option for reform died in 1980, and I think I'm being generous there.
Oh, I mean, I agree. Look, if 1980 though is such a fantastic place to start if you want to like look for where did it go wrong, what happened. 1980 is when George H.W. Bush walked from the director of the CIA's building and his office into essentially the Oval Office. Anyone claiming that Ronald Reagan was anything other than a puppet, I have big beautiful bridges to sell you, I promise. But those 12 years of George H.W. Bush's regime, we're still living. We're still, or not we, you and me, but the U.S. government is still putting the exact same criminals who were involved in Iran-Contra, who were involved in exploding the drug war and bringing it here domestically in ways that have rippling effects that I guarantee you at least half of your audience and certainly half of mine has a personal story about someone in their life who was affected by drug legislation. We're still experiencing all of these consequences. And I mean, just today, December 23rd, is Bill Barr's last day as Attorney General. Bill Barr is the cover-up crew for Iran-Contra. Him and Robert Mueller. Bill Barr is the guy who tried to stop the Church Committee from happening. There are people in Biden's cabinet who have ties to Project for a New American Century. That same gang of demons, the ones that have made it, the ones that
now,
have
Gang of Demons needs to be the band name.
Okay.
Gang of Demons, Giant, Jello, Satanic, Blob, and then of course the General Strikes line.
And it's just like super mellow folk music. No.
Or protest folk music.
Hell yeah. No, I'm down. But I mean, yeah, we're still dealing with the same crooks from the 1980s today.
Well, Joe Biden is a neocon. Yeah. And so many people are just like, it's like, he's a neocon. Like people try to like be a little delicate about that, but it's like, no, that's what he is. Like there's no getting around it. He's a neocon. But I want to go here before we focus more on Assange. Lindsey Graham. So now with the stimulus, we might be getting the 2K. Maybe we'll see what happens. They're saying that they might be ready to vote on that tomorrow, as of the recording of this, which tomorrow would be Christmas Eve, they're going to be ready to vote on that by noon, and it's going to include the 2K payments. We've been talking about a lot of the stuff included in this bill, and here's one of the things Lindsey Graham had to say. I hope Speaker Pelosi will agree with President Trump that big tech needs to be reined in by winding down Section 230 liability protections. I have reason to believe this combination will lead to President Trump supporting the NAA and COVID-19 omnibus bills. So, in other words, Lindsey Graham saying, you know, as long as we're suppressing more digital rights, I guess we can give the plebs $2,000.
I actually screenshotted both of those tweets and put something out about that last night. It pissed me off so much. Social media platforms aren't publishers. And what repealing and rolling back Section 230 to part of it, at least, it more or less grants the authority for social media companies to be publishers and to tell you what is and isn't speech.
That's
without any of the consequences of being a publisher.
That's what so many people are missing, because what they don't realize, they kind of think it does the opposite. And that's what Trump claims. Trump claims it does the opposite. And by the way, Biden too. People like make it out like, oh, Trump thought of this himself. No. It's the people around him, and Joe Biden is for this too. They think it does the opposite because it transfers a bunch of bureaucracy over to the FCC to potentially penalize social media companies or any other online entity. Section 230 applies to everyone, not just social media companies. I think a friend of the show, Evan Greer, who's the deputy director at Fight for the Future, a digital rights organization, she makes a great analogy where she says, like, it's almost like you're saying we need to gut Section 230 because it's shielding social media companies. That's kind of like saying we need to gut the First Amendment because it's shielding Nazis.
Yeah.
It's like you're not it's kind of like, and the way these social media companies are behaving is a huge problem. You know, we all understand the problem, and people across political aisles agree on that problem. Silicon Valley has no right telling me or you what is and isn't news, what is and isn't free speech. They have no right to do that, nor are they qualified to do so. But the solution, the idea of gutting Section 230, it's going to lead to more censorship, not less, because now these social media companies are really going to crack down because they don't want whoever to sue them. The FCC is going to crack down as well. So it's the equivalent. I mean, the way I like to see it, it's like you showed up to the doctor because you have a broken arm, and the doctor goes, that sucks, you got a broken arm. We're going to set you on fire. That'll take care of it. I guess technically, if you're a pile of ashes, that broken arm does go away. But you're also a pile of fucking ashes. That's a shitty solution. But we live in the United States, Steve, where we entertain these fantasies where, you know what, if we have a problem, let's have policy that makes it shittier. and if you don't like that, we'll come up with even shittier policy.
Yeah.
You settle for the less shitty one, or you're the problem.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. It's weighing the available information and the potential solutions to the problem, and then finding a little box to put that in so that you can make the wrong choice every single time. That's kind of like how we do things. It's just, I mean, there's probably, like, you know, feces and some flame involved in there too. But the long and short of it is, if there's a good outcome to be had from a piece of legislation, that's the first thing that goes out the door.
So, and we've been covering a lot of the digital rights implications of this stimulus bill on this show. And to be fair, we even covered the few good things that were actually in the bill. They had money set aside for broadband. That's a good thing. 3.2 billion or something like that for broadband. Hey, that's a good thing. Save Our Stages is included in it. That's a good thing. We've been pushing for the Save Our Stages Act for months on this show. It's not a huge win, but shit, man, you'll take the wins where you can get them. That's a good thing. The bad outweighs the good by a fuckload. And there's that part in there that's going to come down on streamers where we could be facing 30 grand in suits. Now, because of public outcry, they've had to backpedal on that a little bit, where Tillis, the guy from North Carolina, was like, no. We're not coming after your favorite YouTubers. We're not coming after your streamers. We're just going after piracy companies. That's all. We're just going after piracy companies.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No shit, right? No shit.
Didn't we do this 8 years ago?
We did it 8 years ago. We did it 3 years ago. We did it 2 years ago. You really think that fair use situations aren't going to be caught in the crosshairs? We know they are. They already have been. This is an overreach and we fucking know it.
We had a video removed from YouTube. We were covering a protest and there was a copyrighted song that was playing over the loudspeaker at the event. And that's why that was the reason the video got removed.
Yeah. Let's not be naive to think like, oh, stuff's not going to get caught in the crosshairs. So there are incredibly disturbing things on digital rights in this legislation. And this is another thing. And when you see, you know what, Steve, it's so mind-blowing because, especially when it comes to Section 230, you also have to take a step back and just deal with the realization that the people making these decisions, casting the votes that are going to have years of consequences, they're straight up people who don't understand how this stuff works. Like they do. I mean, it's like when you hear these testimonies from people like Ted Cruz and stuff, you know, you can't even say the guy's being malicious or not because you don't know, because he's demonstrating he has no fucking clue how it works. Like he just doesn't understand it. Neither does Donald Trump. Neither does Joe Biden. Neither does Lindsey Graham. Neither does they just don't understand this stuff. They don't even understand what it is and what it does.
Not only do they not understand it, but the most bickering that takes place, especially when they have a hearing around censorship, it isn't that there's too much of it. Nobody makes that point. The argument is over who should be censored more, and not this is an insane abridgment.
And who should do it?
Yeah.
And who should do it? And they constantly just gloss over that who should do it part. You know, they constantly go like, well, of course, Silicon Valley billionaires, right? No, that's not right. That's not who should be doing it. I mean, look, I think the way the free speech laws in the United States are supposed to work, as far as how the law is written, I think it's pretty good. I think our free speech laws are pretty solid. If they were followed, it'd be even better. But I think they're pretty good laws because it's a very tough line to toe as far as, you know, what speech should have consequences, which speech shouldn't. How do you toe that line where you're upholding freedom of the press and upholding freedom of expression, while at the same time, you know, if somebody spreads defamation on somebody else and it hurts their livelihood, it hurts their ability to make a living, or it hurts their, should someone be able to get away with that if they just lie about someone else? So I think the free speech laws of the United States are pretty freaking good, but Facebook's not qualified to enforce them. Twitter is not qualified to enforce them. Constitutional lawyers are qualified to enforce them. Free speech experts are qualified to enforce. So the actual fix is making these things public utilities and following those laws in accordance and making it very transparent and accountable. The fix is not blowing up a section that allows free speech on the internet. That's not what you do. Like, that's just not what you do. And they somehow don't understand this. Somehow these guys, I don't have a law degree. You don't have a law degree. We understand these concepts because it's really not that fucking difficult. But elected officials who do this full time for a fucking job, they can't wrap their head around this somehow.
Wouldn't it? Oh God. Is the quote, is it Salinger who said it's difficult for a man? No, Upton Sinclair. It's difficult for a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. So let's go to Assange now. I really want to get here. I wanted to show you this headline. So this is from the BBC. UN criticizes Trump's pardons for Blackwater guards jailed over Iraq killings. So these are the people Trump is pardoning. He's pardoning war criminals. He's pardoning his friends, Papadopoulos and whoever else. He's not pardoning Snowden. He's not pardoning Assange. And here's another thing that I wanted to show you, another headline I wanted to show you before we talk about all this and dive into what to expect January 4th. Here is something from a torture reporter out in Sweden, Niels Messer. If President Trump is true to his declared values of fighting government corruption and misconduct, he should pardon Assange, who defends precisely these values and has suffered enough for the interests of the public around the world. Now, this is a guy over in Sweden who reports on torture.
So he's actually Swiss, and he's the UN Special Rapporteur on torture and human rights abuses.
Okay. Oh, he's Swiss. I apologize. All right. I said Sweden. My bad.
He speaks fluent Swedish.
Oh, really? There we go. Maybe that's why I was confused. No, I just misspoke. But yeah, so this guy, and he's an academic, he's a professor, and he reports, which, by the way, again, for anybody who doesn't realize this, we'll repeat it again. Solitary confinement is torture. Solitary confinement is torture. And this guy's reporting on it. He's calling for a pardon of Assange. And in the US media, the only thing they're talking about is that Julian Assange's partner wants him pardoned. They're not going to tell you this stuff. They're not going to tell you that experts in this field are saying you got to pardon this guy. They won't talk about that. The US media will not talk about that. So let me ask you about a couple things. First of all, do you think there's any chance whatsoever Trump pardons Assange?
So I am the national organizer for Action for Assange. I'm an activist in this movement. If I didn't maintain a little like nougat center of hope that was, surrounded by a nearly impassable wall of cynicism, I wouldn't be doing this. And I certainly wouldn't be effective at it.
I understand.
And we are effective at it, and I'm still doing this. So I do. There's every incentive in the world for Trump to pardon Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. For Trump, there are no negative consequences to pardoning Julian Assange. There's going to be press blowback, probably. But even that's kind of limited given the precedent that extraditing him and imprisoning him sets. So the press can sort of roast him for it, but this would be one of the pardons that they can't criticize. His political enemies will, and his political enemies have no love for Julian Assange. Joe Biden called him a high-tech terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton wanted to drone strike him.
Right.
And the room laughed.
But here's the thing, though. Yeah. No, I mean, that clip's absolutely disgusting. That was one of her.
I don't know. This today, pardoning several war criminals, pardoning the people who murdered innocent Iraqi civilians, juxtaposed to the gentleman who exposed those war crimes and the murdering of innocent Iraqi civilians. If your first move is to pardon the war criminals and not the nonviolent human being who exposed them, it doesn't bode well. It doesn't send a good message to all of us, in the Assange community.
Well, here's the problem, too. I mean, you're talking like a lot of his political enemies don't like Assange, which is totally true. Another thing that's also totally true is a lot of his political friends have no love for Assange either.
100%.
Now, some claim they do. I mean, Sarah Palin made a video recently. I'm glad she did it. Me
too. I was just on Jason Burmis talking about that earlier. I've never seen Sarah Palin humble.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't the most insightful on the entire issue. Like, it sounded like she was just making it up as she went along. But she said it, and I'll take it. And if more politicians like her did that, where Trump will see it, that can't be a bad thing. I mean, even when the pastor, why do you think that thing happened with the pastor, where the pastor tweeted he's going to pardon Assange and then retracted it like an hour or so later? Why do you think that happened?
Okay, so the day before that, it was a huge Stop the Steal event in DC. And that pastor opened up one of the rallies. Andrew Smith, my partner at Action for Assange, was there with a megaphone, not only heckling the pastor, but flipping that.
Oh, geez, we just lost Steve.
Had the.
So wait, Steve, he was flipping what?
We lost. He was flipping the crowd. He flipped that rally into a Free Julian Assange event.
Oh, wow.
For like 15 minutes. The whole crowd was chanting Free Julian Assange.
Man. So the pastor heard that.
So the pastor heard that. But there were also a series, there were also like rumblings throughout Trump land. And I know this because I got to talk to Bill Benny a couple of times last week. Bill Benny, NSA whistleblower, an incredible human being, and also very much in the Trump camp. And he was saying like, well, I'm hearing from my sources that there's going to be, he said, I believe there's going to be a pardon, and I'm hearing there's going to be. I tend to think that's hopium. I tend to think that's just some feel-good stuff, but it's definitely been put to all of the people in Trump's sphere that this needs to happen.
So, I mean, that's awesome, man. Like, that's like the pastor heard people for Julian Assange, because I mean, when he tweeted that, I mean, I said, I think everyone proceeded with caution, but I think a lot of people engaged with it because it's like, okay, this is a good thing. They say about Trump that, I mean, it was Howard Stern, I think, who said it, where he's like, look, at the end of the day, Trump just wants to be liked. So let's tweet about how awesome that would be if he did that. It can't hurt. It can't hurt. And, you know, why do you think he retracted it so quickly then? So maybe that's why he did it. Why did he retract it? Was it because someone more powerful probably said, hey, that's not going to happen?
I'm sure he got a phone call. I'm sure somebody talked to him and was like, we're not co-signing that. I guess if you can call it wisdom, the conventional wisdom around this is that if Trump does pardon Julian and Ed, it's going to be like last possible minute on the way out the door thing. But again, I do think that's more hopium. I do think that's just stringing people along so that they keep paying attention or that particular blue check. You know what I mean? Like that pastor is connected to a community, and the Q community has just been so detrimental to the Assange movement that it's hard to take too much of what comes out of that guy's mouth even remotely serious. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. We lost you for a little bit there. We lost some of that, unfortunately. But so what is coming up on January 4th? Kind of just unpack that for everybody.
So District Judge Vanessa Baratzer, who we've been calling the concierge to the U.S. State Department, will read her decision as to whether or not Julian Assange is extraordinarily renditioned to the United States. There were two sets of hearings. One was evidentiary in February. One was witness testimony that started September 7th and went a couple of days into October. It was absolutely incredible. There were mind-blowing revelations. And if it would have been broadcast, maybe more people would have heard about it. But as it was, there was a cloud video feed. Nobody could attend court in person, or very limited in-person court procedure. Not very many journalists got on the cloud video feed. We've spoken to all of them on the Assange vigil. Some Kevin Gostola kept popping in because we were live streaming it during the morning when the hearing was taking place.
And he was out there, wasn't he? Like
No, he was in Chicago. He didn't get out
Okay.
he went out in February, but he did not get to go out in September. So he was stateside, waking up as early as we were. And was like, "Oh, you idiots are up. I'll come hang out." Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was fantastic. There was some Kevin Gostola is funny. That dude is funny.
He's a great. I mean, I like his writing a lot. I mean, yeah, I've been following that guy for a long time. Well, so what? I mean, and to just maybe state the obvious, if there are people who are a little less familiar with everything, if he gets extradited to the United States, I mean, what? We're not going to know anything.
No, we're not, because espionage court takes place in a vacuum. This there are people who think, well, you know, if Julian Assange was brought here, he could have his day in court, and he could.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Not,
I mean, the idea that that's just that is a level of naivety that I think borders on, like, I mean, I don't know. Profound ignorance, I think, is putting it gently.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would say it veers on straight up nationalism.
Yeah.
To not see. Yeah, it is dangerous. I mean, it's like to have that much of a blinder on when it comes to the faults of your country. And to even think that knowing what they're trying to charge this guy for, knowing how bogus these charges are. I mean, calling them bogus. There's not a word in the English language for how ridiculous these charges are. And to think he would get a fair trial where it's completely out of the public's eye, completely. I mean, I don't.
It gets worse than that, though. It does, because the Eastern District of Virginia, where this courtroom is, where they call it espionage court, it's got a 100% conviction rate, Ron. The jury pool is all from the towns where all of the intelligence community employees live. So if you're not directly related to, married to someone in the intelligence community, you know them, they're your friends and neighbors, and you're their kid's baseball coach. Not only that, there is no public interest defense allowed for the Espionage Act. Under Espionage Act charges, 17 of the charges against Assange are under the Espionage Act of 1917. Which was originally intended to be a political weapon to curb speech in the first place. And here it is in its penultimate form, in that it's now going after a journalist and publisher. First time in history this has ever been done.
Yeah.
No public interest defense when because it's a national security case. There's going to be a ton of words that are going to be redacted from the transcript and replaced with nonsense words. It confuses the jury and makes them think that whatever's being said is so evil and so fundamentally dangerous that they're not allowed to read this word or this phrase. John Kiriakou, who went through espionage court and did 30 months in prison for revealing the U.S. torture program, is the gentleman who's explained all of this to me and explained it to the Slow News Day audience and the Free Assange Vigil audience. So it's not like I'm just, pulling this out of anywhere. A guy who lived it broke it down for me. Go ahead.
Steve, on January 4th, then, is it going to be like, are they making the solid decision to, or are they going to rule on extraditing him? If they do rule that way, I mean, what could potentially happen next?
So if they rule in favor of extradition, which, let's be honest, absolutely nothing about this process has been fair or legal to begin with, including the fact that Julian's been denied lawyer-client confidentiality since 2017. If they do rule in favor of extradition, there is an appeals process, but the UK criminal justice system, that determination is by the court whether or not to even accept it. So the legal team will, either way, extradition or no extradition, an appeal will be made. The court and a panel of magistrates then decides whether or not to hear it, if it has legal merit, which it will. But again, we're literal kangaroos would make up a more impartial court. So if appeals gets approved, then it moves into another court where Julian's legal team does feel more confident. But according to Stella Morris, his partner and the mother of his two young children, Max and Gabriel, according to her, what she's hearing from UK, legal beagles is they would like to accelerate the appeals process. Stella is telling us be prepared for them to try to move him by May.
Okay. So
normally it would take 2 to 5 years. She's saying it's going to take 2 to maybe 5 months.
So to just summarize here a little bit, because you cut out like a little bit here and there. So to just make sure we got it all. So if they rule for extradition on January 4th, they can appeal it. And who decides whether that appeal holds water or not? Well, the courts themselves decide. So if they decide, yes, we'll hear this appeal, it goes to another court that they do feel a little better about. But meanwhile, simultaneously, they're going to try to make this process as speedy as possible to try to get him to the United States.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
and I need to point this out. The 18th charge that Julian has is a conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge. What that does is criminalize source protection for journalists, which is rule number 1 and tenet number 1 and holy writ number 1 for journalists: protect your source.
Right.
So it was proven in multiple courts now that Julian Assange did not in any way, shape, or form engage in trying to help Chelsea Manning break into any computer in order to get Cablegate or the war logs or collateral murder. It came out in open court that she didn't even have to have a username or password to access all of that material, that everyone in her rank had access to that out of the 100,000 other soldiers that had her rank, she was the only one who saw that and went, this is a problem.
And they tortured her to try to get her to say otherwise.
Yep.
They tortured her. I mean, that's why they're still tormenting her. They are still tormenting her because they desperately want her to say that Julian Assange helped her hack. Somehow he's super hacker Magoo, apparently, and he helped her hack, because that's technically a crime. The way U.S. law works, just accepting the information, that's not a crime. But if you actually hacked, well, the hacking itself is a crime. So if you participated in that, then you committed a crime. And you can find segments on NPR where Glenn Greenwald had to explain this to other journalists. He had to explain this to an NPR so-called journalist. And, you're talking about all the things this whole Assange case connects to. And yeah, there are many connections. The connection to the importance of a free and open internet and city-owned internet, municipal broadband, to assure that stays the lay of the land. The importance of communication for activism. It also goes to show why the U.S. media structure should straight up be illegal. There should be laws against it, because their complicity in all this. And when I say laws, I don't mean laws against freedom of speech or freedom of expression. I mean laws like, hey, you're not news and information if you have oil and gas advertising on your network. You're not news and information. That's against the law in Norway. There's other countries where what our country does with news and information would be against the law, and those countries don't have less freedom of speech; they have more. You look at the actual press freedom index, because freedom of the press doesn't just mean, some goofball like Chris Hayes can say whatever he wants or anyone else. Freedom of the press also means the ability of people to have quality information and the ability of people to not be propagandized and to know what they're reading and to know what they're seeing. That's what freedom of the press also refers to. People try to forget that part. Yeah. So, places like Norway and countries that actually have laws prohibiting media structures like ours, they have more press freedom, not less, because they realize that you don't have a free press if you just hand it over to corporate interests. That's the opposite of a free press. They know that. We don't get that. The United States doesn't get that. Well, Steve, again, man, thank you so much for doing what you do. The way you guys have really kept this story going. And it's been a worldwide effort of so many people on different levels. And it's really inspiring, and it's infinitely important. And you know what? I mean, and I know, we're both sarcastic, cynical dudes in many ways, but I think that it is working. I mean, more people are in tune to this than there were at the beginning of the year.
I agree.
And more people are sounding the alarm about this than there were before. And, just the fact that, you got this in front of a president. And yeah, Trump's a goofball, and the next guy's going to be a goofball too. And goofball is putting it quite gently to describe both of them. But I'm in the holiday spirit. But you got it in front of a president, more or less.
Yeah,
that's huge, and it's infinitely important. This is the press freedom story of a generation. This just is, and really hope that it will have a just ending where this man will be free and back with his family. And you really hope that history tells it the right way too. And you hope that, because what's really important here is, first and foremost, of course, getting Julian free. But then after that, trying to do everything in our power as a society to make sure something like this never happens again.
Absolutely. And we actually have a project called the First Freedoms Society that we're getting ready to launch that encapsulates all of this and whatever the next step is. Targeted campaigns, reform the Espionage Act, reintroduction of the legislation that Tulsi Gabbard put forward.
To pardon Assange.
To pardon Snowden, and to reform the Espionage Act to add those whistleblower protections. A number of different things. We're building a website that'll be an aggregate of censored media, censored content creators, because the push to fight for internet censorship is more important than ever, and we want to be at the forefront of that in our own way. As effective as we can be. This is it. I mean, this is it. The time is right now. And if you're planning on being in DC for the Force the Vote event, please come see us up the street at the Department of Justice afterwards. We need you on the ground with us, but more importantly, as important, we need you talking about it. Wherever you are, social media, the grocery store, I don't care. You need to help us be the voice for press freedom, not just in this country, but globally.
So do you want to go through the chat with me before I have you plug everything?
Sure.
Okay. I just didn't know if you had a time constraint or anything. Wallace West, what's up, buddy? Ron, we need you. We need you in a cage match with D. Dole. I'm assuming they probably mean David Dole. We had a that was a while ago. We had
that was a while ago, but I
had a heated discussion
in the middle of that. You made me stand up and cheer at my laptop.
Well, you know, yeah. All right. Thanks, Wallace. In the holiday spirit, I would just engage in a friendly debate of the issues instead of a cage match.
I got $5 on
pacifist. I'm a pacifist.
Tearing dollar store David Schwimmer's limbs off in a cage match. You.
I'm a pacifist, man. I'm a pacifist. You know, I'm more of a use your words guy. Use your words. But you know what? I got in a fight in the 6th grade and I retired with a 1-0 record. I did win in the 6th grade.
Hell yeah.
I don't remember. We became friends. Like we were friends all through high school and stuff. But in 6th grade, we had a disagreement like you do, and we did something dumb like kids do. And I'm gonna say I probably won. I think I in fact my parents told me years later that like one of the teachers was like, dude, your son got him pretty good. Like they're like, don't repeat this, but because like the teacher was like kind of friends with my dad, and they're like, yeah, you know, Ron was wrong, and he knows he was wrong, and he's sorry, and you know he's gonna be punished for it. And I had like a in-school suspension or whatever, but then the teacher was like, I gotta say though, he got him pretty good, like. And then I retired. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I don't like it. I will use my words. But anyway, let's see. Jim Garrison, what's up, buddy? Thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Sam Dean, good day, Ron. Great year for your channel. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. Merry Christmas from Australia. Thank you very much for that, Sam. And happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. How is God just like a regular man? ? If you're not on your knees, he's not interested. Oh, Sam. I can't wait to see you out in Australia again, buddy. I hope everything is well down under. And I can't wait until the world opens up again and we can tour again. And yeah, I can't wait for that. Donnie, what's up, buddy? Ron, tell him about Peter Joseph's work. I'm assuming you mean Steve, and I know that Steve is very Steve is very familiar with Peter Joseph. Thanks for that shout out. It's Peter Joseph is never a bad recommendation. Did you see his newest movie?
I have, yeah.
It's great. I loved it. What'd you think?
It's well done. The guy does a great job. He does. He's an incredibly talented filmmaker.
It's very funny. I think it's easy to sometimes overlook that part about him because he's so serious a lot. But he's actually a very funny dude who, and in that movie, there are some self-deprecating moments. There are some very good satirical moments. And, I think like that part of him may sometimes get overlooked, that he's actually a very, very funny guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing when you're talking about like potentially, horrible things.
Sure.
If you don't develop that sort of, acerbic or even, default setting sense of humor, then you're just going to scream. Like my whole show would just be me. I did the thing again, didn't I? Am I back?
You're back. Yeah. Okay. You're just gone for like a brief moment.
I can tell because you do this.
It's like these incredible. It'll just be like a kind of stop for like a brief second, and then sometimes it just picks back up right where you were at. Yeah. But then when it goes on for a little bit, I'm like, did we lose? Is Steve? And then you're like back, and it's like it's almost like my voice triggers your return. Except I'm sure that's not what's happening.
My whole show would just be me screaming into a microphone if I didn't crack jokes. Me
too. Yeah, I mean, if it's not me and the guest occasionally just having a laugh, yeah, that would be my show too. But so thanks for that, Donnie. Gordon, what's up, buddy? Thank you very much for the pair. I love the pairs, and it says keep it up, and it's weights. And it's a pair of lifting weights. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Wallace. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate you guys so much. And Steve, where can everyone go to learn more about you?
So my website is slownewsdayshow.com. My tech ninja Sleepy Josh built it, put it together. Big shout out to Sleepy Josh. He does incredible work. The website for Action for Assange is action4assange.com. You can find out everything you need to there. You can follow me on Twitter at Slow News Day Show. You can follow Action for Assange at action_4 Assange. We have Discord groups. And that's just actionforassange.com/Discord. I think it's the same thing with Slow News Day.
There you are.
Get in on. Okay.
You're back.
I never promote. I suck at promoting. So, but if we got the websites out, I think that's I have had some incredible interviews on my show lately. And this Sunday, Tedros Fikramiriam will be on. He writes out of the Guillaume Journal. We're incredibly brilliant, dude. I've got interviews coming up with some fascinating people. And I'm going to include Jared Beck in that. He's coming back on soon. Love a good talk with him.
Well, dude, thanks so much for everything you guys are doing for Julian Assange and for keeping this alive. And everyone, go to Action for Assange, go to Slow News Day, follow what they're doing, and best wishes for the 4th. I'll be around as well, not in DC. I'll be here in California, but yeah, I'll definitely be in tune with all that. And of course, happy holidays, buddy.
You too. You too. Take care, Ron.
All right, man. Be well. That was Steve. From Slow News Day. Awesome chat. We had a couple little lulls there, but we powered through it. And please do follow what they're doing. They are doing very, 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 very important things when it comes to Julian Assange. And I'm very honored to have collaborated with them. And I really do applaud them for maintaining this mission. It is infinitely, infinitely important. And folks, before I go, I just wanted to say, this is it for the year. This is going to be the last official Get Your News On with Ron stream of 2020. That's not to say there won't be other stuff happening on this channel. There probably will be, but this is the last official scheduled live stream of 2020. I always take a break at the end of the year, and I will be coming back again for the official 2021 Get Your News On with Ron stream. We'll be back officially on January 11th. So on January 11th, we'll be back full throttle with new guests, new everything. And I just wanted, I'm not really good at the kind of sentimental announcement moments, but I'm going to have one, so bear with me. It was really relevant for me to have someone like Steve on today, because of what I said in the beginning, where Steve and the Action for Assange folks, they really picked their lane. And, I'm a big punk rocker at heart. So, they're kind of doing what Joe Strummer trained us for, so to speak. And that sort of thing really inspired me to really try to not forget the mission of this show, or part of the mission of this show, which is, not just like having a show that talks about stuff that the corporate media ignores, that talks about stuff pertaining to activism and protests, that talks about stuff, through a sardonic, fun lens, but also kind of has a little bit of a mission associated with it as well, which in the case of this show is municipal broadband. And, at the beginning of the year, I really decided I wanted that to be a huge part of what this show's all about. And that's not the world's sexiest issue. It's not the most clickable issue in the world. And I didn't know how that was going to go. I didn't know if that was going to... I was like, well, if nobody cares, I mean, what can I do? Like if no one cares, then I'm just talking to myself. And even people that do care about these issues, well, do they want to hear about it from a comedian who talks to a cat. Maybe they don't, or maybe they do. And this year has sucked in so many ways for all of us. It has sucked. But I'm going to quote one of my favorite musicians, a guy named Craig Finn, who's in the Hold Steady. Those of you who watch this show all the time, you hear me mention this a lot. But he said something during their virtual concerts earlier this month, which my wife gave me tickets to for my birthday. He said something that really stuck with me that I think sums it up so beautifully and eloquently. He said, "This year is a reminder of what we've lost. But it's also a reminder of what we have." And God damn it. I'm not crying. You are. This is the cat's cutting an onion. Leave me alone. That's what's happening here. Lucy's cutting an onion. But you know, this show lives or dies by you guys. And you've made it abundantly clear this year that it's living and it's not going anywhere. And it means so much for those of you who are able. And I know it's a very difficult time, and I know some people aren't able, but those of you who are able, who give some of your hard-earned money each month to help make sure this show stays on the air. We couldn't do this without you. And for all of you who email me and tell me, "Hey, Ron, I showed up at my mayor's office to push for municipal broadband. Hey, Ron, I have a meeting scheduled with a city council member. Hey, Ron, I showed up to my city council meeting and I used your transcript to help me frame what I was going to say. Hey, Ron, our local DSA chapter has made municipal broadband part of the mission now of their efforts because I brought it up to them." That means a lot. And it really keeps this show alive. And when you email me your music, or you send me your music, or you send me your books, or you send me whatever else, and when you come up to me after shows, which of course we have missed that this year, and there are not words to describe how desperately I have missed that this year. And you come up to me and you say, "Ron, don't keep it up on municipal broadband and net neutrality. We need that. We need that." You know, it may not be the most clickable thing in the world, and it never will be. But that's okay. That it doesn't really matter. You know? Because you guys care. You guys give a shit. And that is so just essential, especially a year like this year, where again, I mean, we have missed so much, but we have so much worth fighting for. And we have so much to be thankful for. And, you know, you guys inspire me so much. And I know sometimes, sometimes if you email me, it might take me a minute or two to get back to you. And I don't see every tweet that's sent to me. My timeline, sometimes I don't see every single one. And sometimes you might even have to email me more than once to remind me about something. But it means so much to what this show is all about. And thank you. Thank you for keeping this show alive. And thank you for giving a shit about what matters to this show. What matters to us really fucking matters. It matters. And I was nervous when I decided to take this show in the direction I took it in. And there were times where I wondered if it was going to work. There were times where I kind of thought this might not work. But you guys have made it clear that it is working. And you kept this thing alive for another year. And we actually reached another goal on Patreon. We reached a goal. Our second goal. So next year is going to start with some equipment upgrades. I'm going to be able to include my editor, Joe, more, which by the way, I couldn't do any of this. Again, my editor, Joe, shout out to him. Couldn't do this without him. Joe is going to be involved more in the upcoming year. That's thanks to you. There's going to be an equipment upgrade. That's because of you guys. So, yeah, again, I'm not good at this kind of stuff. So all I can say, again, is just thank you. Thank you so, so much. You have made me feel infinitely less alone for not just this year, but all the time. All the time. I mean, since the beginning of this show, you have made me feel less alone. And I hope I've done the same for you. I hope you realize, hey, I'm not the only one who thinks this way. I'm not the only one who looks around and I'm like, what the fuck? There's other people. There's other people that feel this way. And we get together and we laugh about it. And you know what? A punk rock geek who talks to his cat and is really passionate about digital rights issues isn't for everyone. But, you know, we got each other. And that means a lot. So I love you all. I thank you all. And happy holidays. And this year in so many ways has sucked. But we're building something. We're building something. And we're not going anywhere. So I'll see y'all in 2021. And in the meantime, look out for each other. Take care of each other. And know that I love you all very much. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.